You're watching Pitch to Production, the show where we take a random idea and turn it into a film, all within a month. Now, without further ado, lights, camera, action.
Hey, how's it going? All right, so it's been a while. It's true, it's been a long time. It's back about 2 weeks now, right, that we've done this. So welcome back to Pitch to Production, the show where we make a film from scratch. So as we left off, we were making a horror film specifically tailored to family, and Aunt was the antagonist, right? So to preface this, I haven't really been able to work on this a lot because I've been super busy. In fact, I'm making another film in class right now, and that's going to be film for month number 2, so look out for that. And it's a romance. So couldn't that be any better timing, right? So anyways, last time we left off, we were working on a horror, and I'm working on the script now. I decided to make a script that is about 10 minutes long to reflect a 10-minute short film, and then cut that up into a trailer. So yeah, we are going to work on that in a second, but I want to talk about pre-production. So pre-production is a long and arduous process. And if you're not familiar with making films, it involves finishing the script. That's like step number 1 after treatments and stuff, finishing the script and then sending that to actors and stuff like that. And while that's happening, you have to make call sheets and references and get patents and everything for that so that you don't, if you're making it monetary, the film, you don't get charged by like the city, because believe it or not, it's technically illegal to film everywhere for monetary value if it's not in your own private property. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes in pre-production. So right now I'm trying to make a call sheet, and I'd love to show you, but I do not have internet right now. So I'm going to explain it to you. A call sheet is basically, like the name of the actors, name of the locations, the times, how long the shot's going to be, what shot you're going to do, because films aren't filmed in sequential order. So let's say I have a film and it has like morning, night, right? I'd probably want to shoot all my morning shots in the morning and then all my night shots at night. So even if the film starts at night, you want to start with the earlier time for the convenience of everybody in the production set. So on terms of the horror, I'm planning on filming the setting is in Loxahatchee, but in reality, actually, I don't have to tell you where it's set or where the set is set, but it's going to give off the aesthetic that it's in Loxahatchee, right? So in the call sheet, it would also have the address where everybody's meeting, and also, believe it or not, the nearest hospital and the nearest police station. So it's a very long process in order to make sure that it's safe for everybody, because obviously if somebody breaks a leg in the middle of nowhere, then that's not a good look for you or me, right? So working on that, and in terms of the film that I'm working on romance, I'm not going to say what the film is about until February rolls around, which is tomorrow. So I'll wait till next week to talk about that. I know, right? But yeah, so we'll work on that. But I'm super excited for the process because I won't be a one-man band unlike this film. So the closer it gets, the more I'll tell you about it. For now, just film 1. So last time we left off, Aunt Faith was, like a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very isolated, very lonely person. And we're trying to see how that affects a person through Cadence and I decided to make it her relative, probably her brother or her cousin, named Andre, right? So Cadence and Andre go to her house and they're like, it's always a hassle or at least Cadence, it's always a hassle to visit Auntie because she's so clingy, but what am I going to do, not see her? Right, because I don't have to like you, but I love you. Shout out CC Clevenger. So we leave off with them finally making it to the Loxahatchee house, and the aunt's like, oh, you drove here in that, because the car they drove in, she's a college student, so she doesn't have like the best car. In fact, it's going to be smoking. Production, I'm going to see if I can get dry ice in the engine, or not the engine, sorry, but under the hood to have that smoking effect. So there's something to think about there. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that each scene and each little thing you put in, like props and the car and the location. Everything has to be accounted for in the call sheet and the budget. So production is all about numbers. This is the more logical part of the creative process, but it's necessary to do so that you have a production. So I'd love to show you the script and everything right now, and my computer is back on. So I know it's super short, but let's take a quick commercial break and then I'll show you what I have on the computer. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Here at the Brooklyn Cafe, our subjects range from hot topics, feel-good stories, and back-in-the-day nostalgia. With guest personalities and business features, you just never know who you'll see on the show. With our brew crew on set, we always air live to inspire, educate, and create. Make it a date and have a day at the cafe. Join Don and Freddie every weekday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. and for lunch every weekday from 12 to 2. Amplify your voice. Call us at 866-224-5422 or visit our website at brooklyncafe.tv.
2TV, the first and only internet production company that's truly plugged in. When you're looking for a full-service internet radio, TV production company, discover AMP2 TV. AMP2 TV is a full-service media company that can provide all streaming videos, video studios, radio studios, and television studios. Call us today at 866-224-5422, for no business is too small to grow to be accounted. It's time for your message to be seen. Let AMP2 TV help get you there.
Being a successful woman in business means having the courage to own who you are. We understand the challenges faced by women, and we are here to help. Our team is here to develop the best strategy designed just for you. Your path is unique, and with the right tools, you can accomplish your dream. From radio to TV, from podcasting to magazines, we create the visibility to amplify your impact in business. At New Dawn Media, we are here to help bring your message forward and help your business flourish. It is time for your message to be seen and your voice to be heard. Contact us at 866-224-5422 or brooklyncafe.tv. Your voice can make a difference.
Whether you enjoy watching in the mornings or afternoons, you can now watch with your favorite merchandise. Choose from the Brooklyn Cafe t-shirts, ranging from sizes small to 3XL. Colors available include black, dark heather, and navy. Feeling chilly? Just check out our latest hoodie with over 9 colors to choose from. Sip on some Brooklyn Cafe coffee with Dawn and Freddie in a matching mug as seen on set. Brooklyn hats and special seasonal items are always popping up and available upon request. To purchase, you can visit our online store at brooklyncafe.tv/shop. Happy shopping!
Hope you grabbed some popcorn. Pitch to Production comes back in 5, 4, 3.
Ew, and we're back. So as you see, I got my handy dandy laptop, except not so handy dandy because it's not letting me access the internet. So what we're gonna do instead is we're going to talk about the script. We're gonna act like, you can still see the script, you're gonna act like it, but we're just gonna use the theater of the mind, right? So now after the interaction with Cadence and Andre and the aunt, that's probably gonna be the end of Act 1 because again, this is a 10-minute film and we're already pushing 2 minutes with that scene. So basically the scene establishes there's a relationship between Andre Cadence and Aunt Faith, and Aunt Faith is isolated and lonely, and there's probably a little point where she snaps. There actually is because I believe if I remember correctly, Andre asks Aunt Faith, like, why you live in the middle of nowhere, or no, sorry, I mistook. He did ask that, but that wasn't the thing that made him snap. What made Aunt Faith snap was that Andre asked, oh, we could have crashed, but we didn't, blah, 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 we got lucky with that stupid old car. And Aunt Faith was like, don't say that. And we can see how even though it's a joke and it's clearly a joke, Aunt Faith doesn't really register it as that, and it's actually like an attack to her. That's why she responds so quickly and snappily. So now we have that. Let's move on to Act 2. So Act 2, I'm thinking about having it be in a night setting, and Andre, Cadence, and Aunt Faith are in the kitchen making dinner or something like that, right? So we can have like interior Loxahatchee house night. That would be the scene heading, and below is the action. So it'd probably be something like Aunt Faith stands in front of let's see, we have the opportunity to establish what her class is. So let's say Aunt Faith stands in front of a inexpensive stove, right? Inexpensive stove that establishes that she doesn't really have the funds to push luxury, or at least put on the appearance of pushing luxury. So that shows that. She cooks, let's say, is she the type of person to cook like a hot dog for dinner, or is she going to make like a full meal for her family? So let's say she makes a full meal. Let's say she makes, what's a full meal? Let's say she makes, I'm losing it. It's like fish, vinegar, peppers. I forget what it's called. Starts with an S, but if I can't figure out what it's called, let's figure out something else. Let's say she makes a shepherd's pie, right? Shepherd's pie establishes that she probably either has a British descent, or she is, she's on the cooking channel and she learned how to make a shepherd's pie. It's not that hard. Well, it is hard, but to explain why an action happens isn't difficult unless it's an action that's supposed to be fundamental to the story, if that makes sense. But let's say she's cooking and Andre's like, let's see what Andre says. Andre is more of a sarcastic type of character, compared to Cadence, who's very straightforward, right? So maybe what's his name? Andre says like a joke about her cooking, and Cadence is like, oh, stop, da da da. So I would write it as Andre, parenthetical, jokingly, oh, make sure you don't burn the shepherd's pie or something, or make sure you don't burn the pie because you don't really not speaking colloquial terms when you're just talking to your relative, right? It's not an interview. So, oh, make sure you don't burn the pie or whatever. The cadence might be like, oh, stop joking like that, or she'll actually do it. Maybe she's egging on the auntie. Maybe that's the kind of relationship she has with her, because we already established that they're not really on the best of terms, not because of a conflict, just because she finds Aunt Faith annoying. So we can do something like that. Pass the scene. Maybe they talk about the food a bit more, and then the scene switches. So a big thing I like to do when it comes to my scripts is to make sure that the theme is consistent and there's continuity. So we've already established that Aunt Faith is a lonely person. Maybe somebody brings up, oh, you should hit up online or dating app or something like that, and then Andre would bounce back with, who is there to date in Loxahatchee, right? A joke like that. Yes, it's a horror, but you don't really feel horror unless there's moments of lightness to it too. Like, you won't really care if a character gets hurt or dies if you never really cared about the character. So if you establish that they have a bond, a familiar, or just a bond that you'd like to see, then you care about these characters more, right? So maybe they have that dialogue and it goes back and forth. Again, it's all in 10 minutes, so it has to be essential stuff. Even if it is supposed to be like a relaxed conversation, it's important for a reason. It serves a function. That's the point of a script. So maybe after that conversation that shows that they have a bond, it goes to Andre saying, oh, I have to go, but what does he have to do? Maybe he has to put in gas in the car, but why would he need to do that if it's nighttime? He could just do it in the morning, right? So let's backtrack. Let's say he has to visit somebody in Loxahatchee. Let's say he has to do something, right? Oh, I have to go. He doesn't really need to explain it, but it still has to fit the context of the story. Like, if they went out of their way to visit Aunt Faith and he disappears out of nowhere, it doesn't really make sense. So we have to give him a reason. Maybe his family touched down somewhere and he has to go pick them up. Let's say that. So Andre's like, okay, see you later. And that leaves that leaves Cadence and Aunt Faith alone, because I don't know if I really established it much, but Andre is kind of the middle person in between them. The glue, like if as long as Andre is there, there's a reason for Cadence to be there. So when Andre leaves, what does that leave for Cadence and Aunt Faith? Now we can start exploring the dynamic between just two people and not a familial setting. So maybe Cadence tries to, let's say, she's a more straightforward person, so maybe she wouldn't try to like awkwardly make conversation. Maybe she just wouldn't make conversation at all, right? She feels like she doesn't need to, so let's say there is no dialogue for her. And Aunt Faith is the one that tries to push her, all right? So let's say, so how's work been, da-da-da-da, right? And Cadence be like, she's a straight shooter. I don't think she would beat around the bush like, oh, it's good, da-da-da. So Cadence would probably be like, what would Cadence be like? You always have to think in the mind of the character, not the mind of the set. So Cadence might be like, oh, I'm a insert occupation here. Let's say, I do this. What are you up to, Auntie? What are you doing? And by the way, saying Auntie shows like there is probably, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Let's scratch that word for now, but saying Auntie infers that there is, maybe there's like an ethnic type, like, it infers like they're in the ethnicity of a person, or maybe just like the situation of the person. So instead of like aunt, they say auntie, or instead of like mom's sister, or like that one over there, it refers to a relationship. So it's always important to show the dynamic between one another by talking about, or having them say like how they address that person. That's very important. Can you tell that I'm floundering yet? Because I kind of am, no internet. We're going to, then let's say they have a conversation, and this is Act 2 at this point. So that's the rise of the conflict or the escalation. So maybe Aunt Faith, or Cadence says something that Aunt Faith doesn't agree with. Like maybe, why do you live in the middle of nowhere? What's the point of that? You don't get to see anybody. And maybe Aunt Faith is like, maybe she's not as confrontational as Cadence. So Aunt Faith would be like, oh, I live here by myself, but I don't mind as long as I get to see you. And maybe Cadence is like, oh, well, we could see you all the time. You just lived closer to us, right? And maybe that tips off Aunt Faith more. So let's say Aunt Faith doesn't snap yet, but there's signs of her snapping. And they continue this talk, and it starts escalating. And maybe because Cadence is like in her 20s, maybe she doesn't like, I hate you, Mom, I hate you, Dad type thing. Maybe they just leave it. And I want to have Andre come back in. It's like, oh, I forgot my keys or something like that, and come back out. And then that's where the scene ends. So we have a build up to the conflict by Cadence asking all these questions, and Aunt Faith doesn't really want to answer them because she feels comfortable in where she is. But Cadence is like, no, you shouldn't feel comfortable. You should feel lonely or whatever. And maybe that tips off Aunt Faith. So now we have that part. Then I want to establish like the actual peak of Act 2. So I'm planning on having another night shot where it's like late at night. Thank you. I'm planning on having another night shot where it's Cadence getting out of the middle of the bed. Maybe she's trying to find Wi-Fi or something like that, or find the router because it's not working. Loxahatchee, I don't know if it has bad Wi-Fi, but maybe Aunt Faith just has bad Wi-Fi reception. Again, she is in the middle of nowhere. So Cadence is looking for the Wi-Fi router, and she doesn't find it. And she's looking all over, and maybe she sees something in the corner of her eye that tips her off. Maybe she sees Aunt Faith. And this was in the trailer. I'm leading back to the trailer script that me and Baxton wrote, watched, I guess 3 weeks ago's episode of that when we were writing a script together. But there's a scene where she was carrying a plate of food, right? But it's weird because they clearly established that they already ate, again, with Andre and the other two. So maybe she follows her in. Maybe Cadence follows Aunt Faith in, and Aunt Faith opens the door with a plate of food and comes back out. And Cadence is like, oh, why did you... Maybe she doesn't say anything. Maybe she wonders why Aunt Faith left a plate of food in there when she, might get answered, something like that. So maybe she goes in, and this is the idea I have in mind for the horror, where it really starts setting in, where she opens the door. Picture this. She opens the door, wondering why Aunt Faith just left the scene after dropping off the plate of food, opens the door, and all she hears, because it's so dark in there, is muffled groans restricted by a cloth, maybe the rustling of clothes and fabric. She turns over her shoulder, and behind the door, hidden behind the door, is Andre, wrapped up, blindfolded, and muffled. And now she's having a freak out, a panic attack, like, oh my God, I just saw my cousin and he's like injured. Maybe he's battered and bruised and he's kidnapped, right? So who would do something like that other than Aunt Faith, who just came out of the room with no reaction? Why would Aunt Faith do this? And this is where the psychological element starts coming in, because she could start a conflict with Aunt Faith, yes, but I don't want to have that type of story because this is a more human story. So maybe she goes to help Andre, or maybe she doesn't. Maybe she's too scared to help Andre. Maybe she realizes the gravity of the situation that she's in, and she leaves Andre to be. But she knows where he is, so she can help him later. But maybe when people see something traumatic, they're going to react a certain way, even if that reaction is doing nothing. So she's going to react somehow. Maybe she stands in place and breathes heavily, as per the trailer episode we did, or the script episode of the trailer we did. And Aunt Faith probably comes back and is like, what are you doing? Da-da-da-da, why are you standing in the dark? And then maybe Cadence will lie like, oh, I couldn't find the Wi-Fi and I stubbed my toe or something like that. And now it becomes a game of what's going to happen. Now there has to be a motive for Cadence to stay there, right? Because there's no reason why she couldn't just get in her car, go to the nearest police station and call the cops, right? So we have to have a reason. And that's why I bring in the scene from before when they're just having a dinner conversation. They're actually enjoying themselves. Cadence loves her auntie, right? She might not like her auntie, but she loves her auntie. Maybe she's the type of person that even though she might not disagree with them, she might not agree with them, she wants to help them. Maybe she doesn't want to call the police because Aunt Faith would clearly get arrested for kidnap or abduction, I guess. Is that abduction if it's in the house that you were invited to? Who knows? But maybe she wants to help out Aunt Faith. And there is kind of like a flaw to that, because if you've ever heard of the mentality where it's like, oh, I can fix them, and you shouldn't really do that, maybe it plays with that. Maybe this is like a savior complex for Cadence, and that brings in that flaw. Like a person in a realistic setting is flawed somehow, and maybe it shows in there. And it's also reflected because Cadence was the one that was like, oh, you should get out of here. You should be closer to us so we can come to you more often. She was already trying to help out Aunt Faith before this even happened. That's just the person she is. And I should go back. I kind of want to emphasize this more by maybe she finds a spider or something and she lets it out in the wild instead of killing it. She's the type of person that would try to save and help everything, even if she is more straightforward and not as sarcastic as Andre, but kind of a pessimist, but she still tries to save things. So let's say that's the conflict of Aunt Faith. She is trying, of the story, she's trying to help Aunt Faith psychologically, while Aunt Faith wants to keep her there physically. So it becomes a story of, I can't let Aunt Faith know that I know, because I want to help her rather than I want to escape. Because again, she can escape in the car at night while Aunt Faith is sleeping. This is a realistic horror, right? So now that we have that out of the way, Act 3 would probably focus more on the escalation of the conflict. And this is a story where the expressions kind of are very hidden, because we established earlier in the earlier episode that Aunt Faith, her eyes you don't know what they really mean. What is she thinking? And that probably scares Cadence a bit. What is she thinking? And how can I help her if I don't know where she's at mentally, right? So maybe it becomes a story of Cadence trying to help her out, but also scared that she's going to, do something to her at night to make sure she stays for good. And that raises the stakes a bit, because if she's not careful, A, she gets hurt by Aunt Faith and is stuck there like Andre, or B, she calls the authorities and they arrest Aunt Faith, right? And that's not what she wants, because she'll be in there for years. So, or months, whatever. She doesn't want her to go to jail. So yeah, that's the central conflict, and the resolution will say that we'll leave it up for when you actually see the film, because I don't want to spoil it for you guys. But that's what writing really is. Granted, I didn't type or write, but it is about figuring out what your themes are, where your conflict is, where your characters lie, and how they escalate and de-escalate. So I'm going to probably end the episode a little bit earlier than usual. I had a lot I wanted to show you guys, but the internet. So let's talk about what production lies. So production in this setting is going to be mostly at night. So I have to make sure I have enough lighting to, so that you can see, because you don't want to raise the brightness setting too high or the ISO too high on a camera, because it starts looking weird and grainy if you ever seen that in like an actual video or something like that. So yeah, we have to make sure that there's enough light. So there's some bounce boards, there's some LEDs, but it doesn't look like artificial light. The goal is to make sure it looks natural light, even though the set has nothing natural about it, right? That's the point. Even in like daytime shooting, there's probably still lighting sets or instruments with lighting capabilities so that the actor's face looks even, or it has the appropriate shading if they want like a more dramatic effect, where like the light's coming this way and there's like deep shadow over here. So there's that to think about. There's the camera, and this is a one-man band. So I have to figure out where my shots are going to be, and I have to compose a shot list or storyboard, which is basically, if you ever seen like behind the scenes of a film, if you've seen like a thing, like squares that look like a comic strip and it has the two characters, that's what a story, not two characters, sorry. And it has like the characters and where they stand per shot. That's what a storyboard is. So I have to know which angles I want to shoot from and the lighting, and I need to know what gear I need, because maybe I need some background noise, so I get a microphone to record the street or the planes or something like that. It's a lot that goes on in a story, and in a film. And to be honest, I'm a little nervous to do it. I've done stuff like this, not an official film. Well, I have actually done an official film, shot on film, but I haven't done like a video like this, of this quality. But I'm excited to do it because, it's the first time for everything, and I don't want to lose the opportunity simply because I was scared to do it. I don't want to do that, right? So I have to think about how I'm going to handle the actors, the blocking, the position of the light, the crew, which is myself, the cameras, and then only then I can worry about what actually happens in the execution of recording. And that's its own can of worms. So excited for that, and I hope you guys are excited too. Make sure to tune in Tuesdays at 4. Still trying to get the timing down, but you know how it is. So, well, actually, you don't know how it is, but it's crazy behind the scenes. So yeah, make sure to tune in that time. And as I always try to say, don't probably say it all the time, would you watch it? I guess in terms of the horror film, would you watch that horror film the way I pitched it? But as always, tune in next time, and that's a wrap.
And we're out. You've been watching Pitch to Production. Join in next week as we keep the ball rolling and the ideas flowing.